My brother died 2 weeks ago. I just found something terrifying he left in his room. I really loved my brother, but when I heard the news of the car accident, I started smiling. A great weight had been lifted. I was relieved. I didn't need to worry about my brother Tyler anymore. Tyler was a very different kid. When he was 6 years old, he decided to run me over on a plastic motorcycle. I was only 2 at the time, screaming as he slammed into me and broke my leg. I was in a cast for months. I still have nightmares about all the things he did to me. Like when I showed Tyler how one of my baby teeth had started to come loose. And he responded by slowly tearing it straight out of my mouth, pulling at the root as tears welled up in my eyes. He proceeded to decapitate all my stuffed animals, saying, "If you rat on me to Mom and Dad, I'll do this to you too." But when my parents saw my bloody mouth, I broke down in tears and told them, "You broke a promise with me. Now for all eternity, you're going to burn," said Tyler when he found out I snitched on him. That's what happens when you break a promise to the alpha bro. At night, I'd picture myself stuck in a hellscape. I was too young to know any better. It felt real. I was convinced for years that it was true, that I was destined for endless suffering. I was always burning in those dreams. But sometimes I was suffocating too. And then I'd wake up to Tyler sitting over me, laughing as I futilely tried to remove his hands from my mouth and nose. He relented only when I was on the brink of passing out. This went on for years. He would suffocate me, beat me, everything you could think of. But when I was in 3rd grade, this all changed. He told me something that stuck with me forever. "You'll be seeing less of me soon," he said. "I'm going to be busy with high school in a year and then I'm going off to college. But I want you to know that I'm never going to forget about you." "What do you mean?" I asked. He glared at me with his icy blue eyes. "I'm going to be building a torture chamber. I'm going to work on it slowly over many years. It's going to have saws and needles and pits of bugs that will eat out your eyes. You're eventually going to convince yourself that I'm lying. You'll think this was just a big joke. But one day you'll be living your life and then all at once you'll pass out and wake up to see me in front of you." Eventually I got old enough to doubt what he had told me. I knew that it was implausible for him to actually be constructing what he'd described. He didn't know how to make something like that. And even if he did, my parents would take it away. That's why I was so relieved when I heard about the car crash that caused his death. I still had nightmares about him. Occasionally I'd sense that I was being watched, and out of the corner of my eye I'd catch a glimpse of my brother in the shadows. I was going insane. My mother called begging me to come visit her. I wasn't eager to go to the same house Tyler had tormented me in for so long, but I owed it to her after skipping Tyler's funeral. I thought too about how lonely she must be without Dad around anymore. Jeremy was called into work that morning, so I pulled up alone to my childhood home. Blinds stretched across a large window to Tyler's room that loomed over the driveway. I spoke with my mother for a few hours. I held my tongue as she praised Tyler and cherished her memories of him. I tried talking to her about Tyler once a few years ago when I was home from college. She looked at me blankly for a moment and then told me that she didn't understand why I'd lie about him like that. The visit continued. Eventually, I told my mother that I wanted to go upstairs alone and see my old room. In truth, I had another goal. There was a different door that I felt I needed to open. I needed to confirm with my own eyes that my darkest fear was not true. As I slowly climbed the main staircase, a forgotten memory resurfaced of me toppling down it. I remembered Tyler pushing me, followed by me convincing my parents that it was an accident. I walked through the second-floor hallway until I reached the small staircase that led further up to Tyler's room. The door stood before me. It was white, plain, and unrevealing. I'd spent so many years in fear of what lay behind it. I turned the handle and pushed. Inside, flickering light exposed a flimsy operating table in the room's center. The table's cushion was torn, exposing raw metal, and restraining straps drooped over the floor. A rope and pulley system connected to 2 cuffs at one end. Near the other was a table full of drills, knives, scalpels, pliers, and hammers of different sizes. Saws covered a dresser top. A branding iron leaned against an iron cabinet lined with spikes. I gasped, dumbfounded. Had my brother's threats been real? If so, how could my mother let this remain here? Surely she'd visited his room and seen it. "How do you like it, Brian?" said Tyler's voice. Tyler emerged from the shadows of a large closet. Blood and insects dropped from holes in his gray, tattered skin. A pink substance dripped from his mouth. He stepped towards me. I backed down the steps and into the hallway. Tyler followed slowly, relishing every moment of my terror. "Did you miss me, little brother?" My foot landed on air. I tried to stop from falling, but my limp impeded my balance. Before I knew it, I was tumbling down the main staircase once again. Then, everything went black. When I woke up, my mother was examining me. She was relieved that I was all right, but grew irritated when I talked about a torture chamber and tried to explain what I'd seen. "Stop. Please stop this now, Brian," said my mother. "I didn't tell you to go in there, and I know Tyler was mean to you, but he was my son and I loved him. Don't speak of him like this, especially so soon after—" She paused as she held back tears. "You got scared and you imagined it. That is all. You were always clumsy." She never understood. She never would. She took me by the arm and demanded that I follow her up the stairs to prove to me that I was delusional. My body shook all over, but I obeyed her. When we reached Tyler's room, there was no torture equipment inside. No saws and needles lay atop the furniture. The closet door was shut. It dawned on me that I really might have been hallucinating. "I was a good mother," she told me. "Tyler turned out just fine. I refuse to believe what you've been telling me, that he's some kind of monster. I'd never raise a child like that. Mom, I've been trying to tell you for years." "No!" she shrieked. "I'd sooner die than believe what you're saying. I won't do it. It isn't true. How dare you lie about your only sibling like that?" I didn't respond. Not because I couldn't come up with anything to say, but because I knew that she'd never change her mind. That evening, I scheduled an appointment with a psychiatrist. Jeremy brought me to the office and sat in the waiting room for the duration of my first visit. The psychiatrist and I talked about repressed trauma and manifestations of buried memories. It felt good to get what had happened to me off my chest. I left with prescriptions and information about several support groups. The treatment helped. I started to feel better as Tyler faded from the shadows. Jeremy noted the improvement, and our relationship returned to where it had been before Tyler's death. A few weeks later, I pulled up to my childhood home with a bottle of wine for my mother. I remained angry with her for refusing to believe me about Tyler. I still felt terrible about abandoning her at the funeral. I was there to overcome my fears and to give her the support she needed. I parked my car in the driveway. I was about to step out when a familiar song began to play on the radio. I smiled and closed my eyes. I was going to make it through this. What Tyler had done to me had left a deep impact, one that had manifested into me imagining that he'd grabbed me at the cemetery and that he'd appeared in his old bedroom. But I was past that now, and he was gone for good. I'd beaten him, in a sense. I had a wonderful boyfriend, and I was about to rebuild my relationship with our mother, while Tyler was dead and buried. He couldn't hurt me anymore. That's when I heard a cry from upstairs. All at once, the car shook as a force crashed into it. When I opened my eyes, my mother lay dead before me on the fractured windshield. I sprang outside. Tyler's face glared down at me from behind the open window to his bedroom. I fell to the ground and cowered. "It's almost complete," said Tyler. "Watch out. Any day now I'm coming for you."